Meeting to order. And if I can find my agenda, we'll get things going here. First, we'll have roll call.
Kim Collier.
Here.
Bill Carbot.
Here.
Ken Meyer.
Here. And you were emailed a copy of the minutes from our October 4th meeting. Are there any comments or corrections?
A motion to approve as email.
Second. A motion and a second to approve the minutes from our October 4th meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you, that's that. The first thing was going to be Kelly Sycafus. She's not here.
You're walking right in
She's walking in right now. Is there something we can do quickly before that? How about, Phyllis, do you have Fleming's pay application? It's pay application number 4 for the sewer project. And it's in the amount of $449,999.07. Almost $450,000. And Phyllis, in the scheme of things, is that pretty much on schedule with where we should be?
Bill's flight.
Bill?
Do you want to comment on the pay app?
Yes, I think they're making good progress, and that's about where we ought to be.
Okay.
Overall,
For Fleming's portion?
where they're at right now, but they're making good progress.
Yeah.
I think everybody seems to be pleased
Okay.
with the progress we've been making.
Bill, would you like to do your report now? That way you can get out of here since it's crappy outside?
I'll come up and do that.
Okay.
Claim complete, or you can do that?
The what?
The claim.
Yeah, let's wait till he's done, then we'll do that.
Okay. I'll come up here, Sid. This picks me up, I
Yeah,
guess.
we had our
Progress.
scheduled progress meeting this morning at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And everything really seems to be going really good.
Yeah, it's actually going very well. We had our first RFI last week with the new siphon lines crossing the river. They had to raise the pipe 1 foot to stay out of some rock. Very minor. They still have 2 feet of cover till they even get to the minimum amount
Explain
of
real
cover.
quickly, briefly, in layman's terms, what a siphon, double barrel siphon under
Double
the
barrel
river.
siphon, you have 2 pipes that come down. It's kind of like, works kind of like a toilet in a way, because it fills up, goes, the velocity, the suction just keeps it moving across. It's down, back up,
It goes
under the river without having to be pumped. You have 2 barrels for maintenance and just for backup purposes. You have one there.
Right.
We needed a new one because of the new location of the interceptor. The pipes went in. They had, other than, like I said, hitting some rock, they didn't want to dig through the rock that puts the equipment for doing the work at risk. The soil borings, which are not, ever exact in every location. It's not like we're x-raying the whole earth. It's looking at it through a straw, you might say. We're said, hey, it's 6 feet to the rock. They put it at 6 feet. The minimum cover is 3 feet. We told them, bring it up a foot. They brought it up a foot. Went through fine. So the siphons are in. That was kind of a big thing because they had to schedule that with a subcontractor who's now off to Pennsylvania for 3 months for another project. So they got that done timely, and it's all in there and ready to be connected. We had a small question today about a structure that was uncovered that was not visible. That'll be our second RFI. Shifting a pipe, extending one pipe like 10 feet, moving a structure like 10 feet to avoid a bigger mess. Very simple, very straightforward. Contractor's already been explained, and they were right on board with what to do. We do have another change order, which I'm working on. It's for, I believe, a total of $1,069. It will be change order 3 once I get it put together. Where they had change order 2, if you remember, we authorized this last month, I believe, or the end of the month before. They had to relay the water line, the cast iron water lines crossing the parking lot next to Front Street.
Right.
There was a valve that was not identified that needed to be added and included in that to shut off a 6-inch branch lines for future maintenance. It was either Dan or Jeremy gave them the direction that, hey, we need this valve on here. I found out about it after the fact. It's fine. It's needed to be done. It's a valve that should have been there. Probably no one knew that it wasn't there. Picked it up, got it in there on the same mobilization, and the cost is actually very, very simple. It's just a matter of getting all the documentation into a package to get for an actual signature.
And
So,
that, we need to have the
need an
board
authorization
okay that.
to okay
It's
that.
$1,069 for the labor and the parts to add this
I
valve.
believe that's the total. I'd have to look on my computer. It's. Let me look. I'll double check. Just to
Okay.
be sure.
All right.
I looked right before I got up here, and I want to make sure. You know, short-term memory. Yes, I have a total of $1,069.
Okay.
So.
I'll take a
that one
motion
will
to authorize the payment for the change order.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Okay, thank you, Bill.
Yep, I will get you the paperwork on that.
Okay.
Probably later this week. Other than that, project's going very smoothly. It appears that they actually will have most of the area, the work area, cleaned up for the Californian.
You're learning how to say that word, aren't you?
Yeah, it's one of those things.
First time you said it wasn't quite.
I always was like, what? Like, okay, colloquialisms are.
Did you Google it? A loud ruckus.
I did actually.
When you asked, I said, look it up.
I did look it up, but I don't remember. That was 3 weeks ago now. They're trying to
Yeah,
get things
plumbing.
sorted out. Plumbing's trying to get the parking lot and it won't be pristine, obviously, but they're going to have it cleared up as much as they can, from my understanding.
Yeah, the chamber lot will be available for parking that evening, whatever is needed. And then the First Street lot back here, between Macklin and Mark's Heating, will be cleared, because I believe that's where the high school bands stage after they march. And he said he'd have it cleaned up enough that the bands can still stage there, so that's all we know. And then after the Californian parade, then he will come back early November and connect First Street.
Right, that's...
Down
he's
the alley.
working his way down the interceptor first, then they're going to come back because they have the equipment that they need to do. The
Right.
interceptor is very large,
Mhm.
and they want to get the rental finished and try to economize their
Right.
costs and
Get
their
the boring
work.
crew on the Pennsylvania and get the big equipment returned, and then he'll finish that up.
Yeah.
Which is what connects down to the big blue tank. So,
Right.
and yeah, he's thinking then by mid to late November, all the pipes should be laid.
Right. He said he'll probably do a little bit of surface patching, but the plan is for the project to be pretty much put on hold through the winter.
Right.
So then we can come back in the spring and do all seeding, grading, resurfaces when we have good conditions, instead of doing it and paying for it now and then having it get torn up in the winter and then paying to redo it again in the spring probably.
Right. Yep.
So,
That was
which I think
the thought.
everyone has agreed to at the beginning of the project.
Yep.
So,
Okay, anything else that you have?
I think that's pretty much it, unless anybody has any questions on where we are.
Any questions from the board?
Nope.
We need to authorize the payment of... Yes, now we need to authorize the payment to Fleming for $449,999.07, the fourth payment.
I'll make a motion to pay Fleming the fourth
Second.
payment.
A motion and a second. Motion from Bill, second from Cam. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you, Bill. Safe travels home, getting yucky out.
I do want to talk to Jeremy or
Okay.
Dan if I see
All right.
them. I was hoping one would show up.
They should be. Okay, Kelly. That's fine. And then if you and Pat want to sit right there at that table, that mic should pick you up. Our meetings are video recorded,
Okay.
so...
Anybody else to? Mayor, do you want to?
Do you, yeah.
I sure will.
How many, do you have plenty of them, Kelly? Council members? If you're not done, could you at least pause and listen to what Kelly has to present? If you can come up, yeah.
For Kelly.
Well, thank you.
How are you?
Aw. That's so sweet.
We don't yell at you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I read the nice paper. It looked like a pleasant couple of meetings they had.
It wasn't even about me this time.
No. Jimmy, don't bring employees in here with you.
Well, thanks so much for having us. I brought my board chair with me. I'm also extremely actively involved in the Recovery House effort. So this is just kind of let you know what's going on as far as what our plans are in asking the commissioners to consider using the work release building that will become vacated once the jail's done and everybody moves out for a recovery house. And we've been working on having a recovery house in the community for, oh gosh, it's been over 3 years now. There was a group of people that were actively involved in, putting one together. We went and visited a whole bunch of recovery houses and saw the benefits of them. And I've worked with them in several different community meetings for many years and just see what a difference it makes for those people, the community. The recidivism rate is so much better, things like that. We're like, we need one in Adams County so bad. So on your handout, I just put together some statistics for you that we recently put in a grant application about, how many, 49 overdose calls, 17 deaths since 2001. I mean, the statistics tell the story too, but there's a lot of people, not involved in those statistics as well. I mean, we are talking about, the offenders, and obviously drug court people would be definite participants, at a recovery house and things like that. So we're both very interested in that as well. But it's self-referral too. They don't have to be part of the criminal justice system to enter a recovery house. Some studies show that it's better if they don't, aren't part of the system like that. So that's basically what we want to do. We had thought about, okay, we're going to try to do this ourselves. We developed our own bylaws, we developed our own house rules, all different kinds of things. And then as of late, with so many things going on with drug court taking off and things like that, nobody really has the time or really the knowledge to run a recovery house on a day-to-day basis. So if we were to obtain that facility or another one, Serenity House is willing to run it for us. And the other handout is just Serenity's homepage on their website. They run 7 houses right now in Auburn and Warsaw, men's and women's houses. Very successful. They've been in business since 1995.
Where did you say, Auburn and Warsaw?
Auburn and Warsaw.
Right, up northeastern Indiana, but that's primarily where they're at.
Mm-hmm. So very successful. I know the executive director of Serenity House very well. I've worked with him for many years, and he and one of the other board members and I had a conversation a week ago Monday, and just they're very excited about the possibility of bringing Serenity House here, and as are we.
So what we're looking to do is address our population. Right now, because we don't have any kind of recovery home or even detox center in Adams County, Indiana, we have somebody who's got a heroin or a cocaine or an opiate or a methamphetamine type of problem, we are trying to shift them somewhere else. Or we're sticking them in the jail, which is, honestly, it's horrible to put them in jail, because it's very risky for the jail if something medically happens to them, and it's a really very inhumane way to detox somebody, to stick them in there and just let them suffer it out. So we're trying to find something as an alternative for ours, because right now our hospital won't take them. Our behavioral health is a geriatrics ward. They don't take people who may be going through withdrawals or maybe have criminal charges. So we send them up to Parkview or St. Joe or Park Center's Carew Street address and hope they take them. Most of the time they get held up there for 24 to 48, 72 hours and let them go. And they come right back and they start using. And then when we finally do get them dried out, a lot of times they have no place to go to, because the place they were using the drugs is typically their home. You can't put them back in their home because you're just going back to the same drug uses they were using. So we're really hoping to find some place to get them in, get them stable, get them counseling with our park center partners, our behavioral health partners at this point in time, and get them back on their feet so we can get them back out in the community, because these, unfortunately, these are our neighbors and our friends and our brothers and our sisters right here. We're not trying to get a Serenity House to come here to import people in from another community. That's absolutely...
We have plenty right here.
I'm completely opposed. I mean, it's not saying that won't happen forever or any time. Well, that's not the intention. We don't want to set one up here. But there are none around here. There's none in Jay County. There's none in Wells County. There's none in Adams County. And when you start pulling Adams County people up and send them up into the, honestly, the ghettos of Fort Wayne, you're doing them more damage than good to try to put them in one of those homes normally, because we're putting them into just a completely different environment and world than they've ever been used to for the most part. And we're, unfortunately, a lot of times subjecting to people who are a lot worse off than they are. So we're really hopeful that, since the county council and commissioners don't seem to have any use for that work release center, that's a 32-bed facility. It's got, you know, a dormitory style kind of setup with a kitchen and rec room and meeting rooms and such. It's really pretty ideally situated, even though it's not really a house, so to speak. It could be easily modified and probably do something of that nature. Serenity House has actually expressed interest to us in coming down and seeing it if they would go forward. And we would just love to see your support. We know that a group before ours tried to get a house over on over here on First Street. Dr. Grody's old office is to put a house in there, and I know it did not pass zoning, but where the jail's at right now, I'm assuming zoning is not an issue. We're already housing this exact kind of population in that facility already, so we're really not changing anything other than trying to do it in maybe a better and more humane way. And
Then who would staff this? Serenity House?
Serenity House would.
They would staff it.
Serenity House.
They would pay the rent. They would...
Right. We would provide
Just
them
making the
facility.
building available is what
right.
we're...
We would provide them facility. They would do all the day-to-day operations and running. They would end up appointing people from the local county or the local community to be on their board for this house, so we have input and say-so in it. And typically in other communities, from what Serenity House said the last time I talked to them, which was not been terribly recent, was that if for some reason it doesn't go, they give the house back to you, basically. We're not deeding over the entire ownership of the work, but selling that property to them to do this, basically turn it over to them to run it.
So they are a nonprofit.
They're a
having their
nonprofit,
own
yes.
board.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Being on the Community Corrections Board has opened my eyes a lot in my first 9 months. I mean, some of the things that I've heard you and Jeremy and the sheriff,
Right.
some of the other people on the board share, it was just eye-opening, especially the heroin problem that we have in the county.
And it's terrifying. I like to tell everybody, when we decided to do drug court, we never thought we'd be a heroin court. We're a heroin court. We have 13 people in it, and 11 of them are heroin addicts. We didn't plan it.
Yeah.
We thought we'd have methamphetamine and cocaine and all kinds of other things. We have almost none of that, because this is such an unfortunately an epidemic right now. But you know, heroin will eventually phase out.
Yeah.
Meth will
Do
come
you
back,
know-
or cocaine or something. But we're still going to be dealing with that same kind of problem when we switch to a new drug, unfortunately.
Do you know if there are any other, like for example, community corrections? I know it was talked about at one time putting them in there. Are there any other ideas
Community
being tossed
corrections
out?
is about the only other option that's been bandied about, and
Okay.
it's not really very well suited for community corrections. I know that Ian, if he has his ways, would prefer not to be there, just because the setup and the layout is not conducive for what they need to do. Lots of remodel would have to be done for that, lots of restructuring, and it just isn't really well designed for their kind of office space and their kind of needs. But I haven't heard anything else discussed as to what they're going to try to use that facility for when they tear the old jail down.
And have either of you talked with any of the commissioners or county council members individually?
Not lately. we're actually on their agenda for November 1st to
Right.
talk to them about exactly what we're here telling you about, because, I mean, if we're going to put this in your city, we wanted you to be aware of it, and to get your opinions on it before we started talking to them about giving us a building or letting us use a building.
Rex Moore gets the minutes to our
Yes.
meeting, so he is aware of it via the
And
minutes.
Ian talks to
But-
him quite frequently, but,
Yes.
and Ian couldn't be here today, unfortunately, but
Is it commissioners or council meeting?
We're going to commission.
we're going to go to the
Commissioners, okay,
Yeah, because the commissioners would actually have say-so on whether we could use that building or not.
okay.
So it's just the work release, the jail itself, I think.
The jail, they're going to bulldoze, from what I
Bulldoze down.
understood. That was always my understanding, so, but they were never planning on knocking down the work release facility since it's a freestanding building and it's not in as bad a shape.
Is there, would there be any zoning things that we would have to look at?
I'll have to look at it. I don't know that there is, but I don't know how the jail, I don't know what the zoning is for the jail, or it's probably, as the judge said, it's a similar use. I just don't know if the existing facility was grandfathered in.
And I don't...
So that's something I gotta look
apologize.
at.
It wasn't something I thought about looking at before I walked in here.
But you said that the title of the building would remain with the county, or?
Right. Serenity House, the last time we talked to them, said if we found them a house, they would expect to take over use and possession of it. They would pay any rent or utilities on it. But if for some reason they stopped functioning as a Serenity House in our county, they would give it back to us. And that's how they've done it in other counties, they said. I'm correct on that, right? I'm not, okay, yeah. So they're not asking for us to like deed them the property. the
Okay.
land.
So does this fall under Ian somehow?
Fall under Ian?
No.
Ian's on the committee trying to
He's
make
just
this
on the
happen.
committee.
He's just on the
Because he
committee.
sees the need.
Right.
As like you.
There's a fairly good-sized group of people who pulled together to try to do this, even like Leslie Rhodes with our employment's on our committee, so, I mean, it's not just governmental
No,
at this
I
point
think
in
that
time.
the bank had concern when the bank was functioning over here.
Sure.
With it being next to the
Well,
the business.
that was the main problem, because I'm on the planning board, and the main problem was the neighbors and
No.
and everything. I mean, that's what I've always said, you got to sell them
Right.
and convince them, I thought it was a great idea. I was hoping they'd find another location, so I'm,
And I was a little, when that went through, and again, that was a different group than the one, than our group at this point in time, they didn't do a very good publicity job on it. I completely agree with you on that. Bill.
exactly, they did not sell it.
They did not
and
sell it
I
to
told
the-
them
right.
at that time, maybe go up to Angola
Right.
and get a rep to come down the next time they approach and try to be more of a sale.
We
But
actually...
the surroundings is much different from what you're looking
Yeah,
at.
down there at the jail where this has been a fixture and they're used to that, I mean, like I said, this will be a whole lot less traffic actually than the jail ever for us to switch this over to that kind of use potentially.
And we want the community, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We want the community to know too, I mean, just being inside the recovery house and stuff, you can see how hard the house managers and the executive director try to change their mentality. They're like, you've taken from the community in so many ways. You've stolen from people. You've hurt your family. You've hurt your friends. You've hurt a lot of people. You need to give back to the community. That's instilled in them from day one. So they're the first ones, if the neighbors need anything, the houses that are in neighborhoods and stuff, they're the first ones to break people's leaves and shovel their snow and do anything. I've been to the Serenity House just a couple weeks ago for an event, and I pulled up and I had boxes of stuff, whatever, and they're all rushing to my car and helping me. They've been taught that, and so they're going to do what they can for the community. It'll be just the opposite of what people's fear is.
Mike, do you have any thoughts on this, being from the police force?
We tried this, way back on Mercer Avenue way back when.
I remember that.
There used to be one over by the hospital way back when that, Walt Maury ran.
Right.
Yeah.
Those were directors there. But, yeah, if it can get functioning, somebody else handling that, like you said, the Trinity House there has several, don't they? They have,
7 houses.
And working fine.
Yeah.
We're doing another one up north here too, or are these all functioning right now?
They're all functioning right now.
I wouldn't swear they're not opening another one, but they got 7 functioning ones right now.
Yeah. Like anything, it's it won't be 100% success as far as they go, but
Right.
it's definitely, there's usually say, I mean, over and above, and go to a percentage of success or something like that. The Serenity House does a good job with that. They know exactly what they're doing. You know, they've done it for forever.
For years, yes.
A good track record.
Yes, definitely.
So would you like me or and anyone available?
Yeah, if you
That would
would
be
attend that
be
meeting.
interested in coming or just giving some kind of show of support, whether that's a letter or something, and like I said, we would love to have your blessings and approval on this before.
When is that meeting?
November 1st at 10 a.m.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any other questions?
Maybe he says this already. Will a representative from Serenity House be at that meeting?
Yes, the executive director and the chairman of the board will be there.
Good.
So,
Any of the council members that can make it, I welcome you to go. I will, 10 a.m. Tuesday the 1st. Bill, I won't be at our meeting that day. You'll have plenty of people there without me. I look up and you're looking right at me.
I heard the time
All right, good. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Kelly, is this yours or is this yours, Phyllis? Okay, this is Phyllis's. Okay. Next, let's go to this most boring thing that we have to do tonight.
Oh,
We'll
this
finish our job.
this is,
Watch this.
yeah, I
You can
gotta
do
watch
that and
it.
watch this at the same time.
Oh, I can do that.
Okay.
You multitask.
I know what you're getting ready to do. Yeah, I can do that.
But make sure you watch this, or at least listen.
No, I will.
We're gonna have a test after it.
No, we did this last year.
Internal controls.
No, this is,
We have not done this.
and we all have to watch
We all
the
have to
video.
watch this.
Obtain a system of internal control
26
to
minutes?
promote
26
government
minutes.
accountability and transparency.
Yes.
The information on the following slides supplement and support the PowerPoint presentation on the Uniform Internal Control Standards for Indiana Political Subdivisions Manual issued by the State Board of Accounts. The presentation materials are located in Part 2 of the manual, which is available on the State Board of Accounts website, www.in.gov/SBOA.
She's still speaking, it's really quiet. You gotta really listen. It'll come back up.
Why do we talk about internal controls and then find it difficult to take action? Well, controls are not uniform. Although many governmental units are similar in organizational structure, they are different in many ways. Because the type and number of governing bodies, departments, community needs, and staffing vary between entities, the same internal control system cannot be utilized for every unit of government. Controls are not tangible. They're not something you can really see or touch. However, they should have tangible evidence that a control is occurring. They are not rocket science, but in order to be effective, they have to be more than just thought. This presentation will help you to obtain an understanding of what internal controls are and how to implement them. To gain an understanding of internal controls, we will discuss the 3 categories of objectives, the 5 components of internal control systems, COSO, the Green Book, which were used to develop our internal control standards and include expanded guidance on the role of those in charge of governance and internal control systems, adjusted for increased dependency on IT, and the 17 principles under the 5 components. First, let's look at what you need for an effective internal control system. An effective system of internal control requires that each of the 5 components and 17 principles are present and functioning, and the 5 components operate together in an integrated manner. A major control deficiency exists if the governmental unit cannot conclude that these are met. This image shows how the 5 components of internal control are integrated into the governmental unit's operational structure to ensure that management's objectives are achieved. Internal controls should be designed and implemented for each of management's objectives. The controls should consider the governmental unit's operational structure and address each of the 5 internal control components. Management's objectives must first be defined so that controls can be designed to meet those objectives. Management's objectives have been divided into 3 broad categories: operations, reporting, and compliance. At times, these objectives may overlap. Operations objectives include operational and performance goals along with the effectiveness and efficiency of operations, including the safeguarding of assets. Some examples of operation objectives would be the regular day-to-day duties like ensuring money is collected or deposited and recorded in the record, that disbursements made are recorded in the record, payroll is processed timely and accurate, as well as many other operational functions. Reporting objectives include both financial and non-financial information, internal and external, to the unit, with an expectation of reliability, accountability, and transparency. This would include ensuring that required reports are filed on time and accurate, and that they reflect the true activity of the unit. Compliance objective ensures that adherence to laws and regulations, local, state, and federal laws and regulations that are applicable to the unit. As mentioned earlier, some objectives may overlap. A good example of overlapping objectives would be the annual budget. Units are required to establish an annual budget and have it approved by DLGF, which is a compliance objective. The unit is required to stay within that budget, so in order to achieve that, appropriations are set up within the financial accounting system and monitored throughout the year as part of the daily operations, which is an operations objective. DLGF also requires that certain information be reported by specific deadlines in order to have the budget approved, so there is a reporting objective as well. To ensure all the objectives are met, the unit may need to establish multiple controls or may be able to establish a control that meets multiple objectives. In designing a control system, all 5 internal control components should be addressed: control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, monitoring activities. If any of the 5 components is missing, true internal control is not achieved. Control environment acts as the foundation for a sound system of internal control. It sets the standards, processes, and structures, management's tone, integrity and ethical values of the political subdivision, and includes performance, measurements, incentives, and rewards. Risk assessment requires management to consider the impact of possible changes in the external environment and within the political subdivision that may render internal control ineffective. Many organizations take a risk-based approach to internal control, which includes risk identification, risk analysis, and risk response. Control activities are the actions established through policies and procedures to mitigate risks to the achievement of objectives. They are preventative and detective in nature, manual and automated activities, and includes segregation of duties. Internal controls should be designed to combat fraud and misstatements. This includes prevention and detection activities. Prevention activities are designed to deter the occurrence of an unfavorable event. Detection activities are designed to identify unfavorable events that have already occurred in a timely manner. Unfavorable events include fraud and misstatements due to errors and omissions. Misstatements may or may not be intentional. Intent is the major factor in determining fraud. If you look at the fraud triangle, you will see it includes 3 items: pressure, rationalization, and opportunity. Financial need is the most common pressure. The need may be due to several factors or combination of factors, such as a gambling problem, excessive medical bills, excessive lifestyle, loss of household income, family-related issues, divorce, or any other issue that may cause a financial strain in a person's household. Rationalization are the excuses for their behavior. Some examples of rationalization are, I'll pay it back, I put in a lot of hours, this job owes me, I don't get paid enough, it's only a small amount, the unit has plenty of money. Opportunity occurs when there are weaknesses in the unit's internal control system. The person may recognize that no one else sees the records or reports, that no one asks any questions, that officials may have an I don't care attitude. The amounts usually start out small to test the controls, and if it isn't caught, usually grows into large amounts and continues until it becomes obvious. When these three elements are present, it can be hard for even the most honest person not to take advantage of the situation. If opportunity can be reduced or eliminated with a good internal control system, this will reduce the risk of fraud. Relevant information includes both internal and external sources. Communication is the continual process of providing, sharing, and obtaining necessary information. This provides transparency and sets the tone for management and officials' attitude toward their responsibilities. The information to be provided, as well as who the information will be communicated to, should be clearly defined. The following things should be considered when making those decisions. There should be an emphasis of the importance of quality information, the volume and sources, complexity of processes, technology advances, and greater interaction with third-party vendors. Monitoring activities should be designed to evaluate whether internal controls are present and functioning. In some cases, control and monitoring activities may be the same. For example, a review of reconciliation with the intent to detect errors would be a control activity, while a review of the same reconciliation with the intent to determine if the control was actually occurring and functioning properly would be a monitoring activity. Monitoring activities should be ongoing and have separate evaluations. Ongoing activities would be built into the business process at various levels so that it will provide timely information. Or separate evaluations would be conducted periodically, and the frequency would depend on the assessment of risks and effectiveness of ongoing evaluations. New principles were established by the Committee of Sponsoring Organization, or COSO, to clarify requirements of effective internal control using 17 principles. These requirements are included in the Standards for Internal Control in the Federal Government, otherwise known as the Green Book. Accordingly, the standards adopted by the State Board of Accounts were based on this conceptual framework. These 17 principles help to clarify and define the 5 components of internal control. Each principle relates to a component of the internal control system and are based on common sense. We will discuss these principles and provide some general examples of control procedures. Please keep in mind that the examples are just samples of control procedures to help understand what controls in each of the internal control components might look like. Remember that controls should be specific to your entity. There are more examples and case studies in Part 2 of the Internal Control Manual. Control environment contains the first 5 principles. Number 1, the oversight body and management demonstrate a commitment to integrity and ethical values. Number 2, the oversight body oversees the entity's internal control system. Number 3, management establishes an organizational structure, assigns responsibility, and delegates authority to achieve the political subdivision's objectives. Number 4, management demonstrates a commitment to attract, develop, and retain competent individuals. And number 5, management evaluates performance and holds individuals accountable for their internal control responsibilities. One term that we need to define is oversight body. The oversight body works with management to develop and implement internal controls. While management would design and implement internal controls, the oversight body has the ultimate responsibility to oversee that the internal controls have been implemented and are being followed by the political subdivision as a whole. By default, the oversight body would be the legislative body for each political subdivision, such as the county commissioners, city council, school board, or township board. However, the legislative body could establish a separate oversight body or committee. In doing so, the legislative body would need to designate which positions would serve on the oversight body and what the responsibilities of the oversight body would be. The oversight body and management need to make sure their expectations, policies, and procedures are clearly defined and communicated throughout the unit. Their attitude towards integrity and ethical values should be evident. Some examples of procedures that may accomplish this are as follows: conveying periodic messages throughout the unit, continually evaluating internal control to ensure procedures are being implemented and are effective, providing a method of confidential reporting, establishing policies and procedures to address violations, clearly defining job responsibilities, employee evaluations, as well as criteria for hiring and retaining qualified personnel. Risk assessment contains the next 4 principles. Number 6, management defines objectives clearly to enable the identification of risks and defines risk tolerances. Number 7, management identifies, analyzes, and responds to risks related to achieving the defined objectives. Number 8, management considers the potential for fraud when identifying, analyzing, and responding to risks. And number 9, management identifies, analyzes, and responds to significant changes that could impact the internal control system. Basically, this means that management should be identifying areas where things could go wrong and develop procedures that would address those risks. This should be done for each of management's objectives. When evaluating risks, management should consider the effects of changes in the entity and inherent risks for those activities. Anytime there is a change in the entity's environment, a risk assessment should be performed to determine how that change may impact the control structure of the unit. Some changes that may increase or decrease risks are changes in management or responsibilities, rapid growth, new technology or software, new programs or services, changes in laws and regulations, economic stability, and other changes in operations or unit structure. Inherent risk considers the nature of the transaction or activity. Things to consider when assessing inherent risk are the complexity of the activity itself or the calculations performed, the susceptibility of the activity to fraud or misappropriation, extent of judgment involved, size and volume of items comprising that activity, and likelihood and impact. After identifying the impact of any changes and assessing an inherent risk, management needs to develop a response. The response may include not making any changes, modifying current control procedures, eliminating ineffective control procedures, and or developing new control procedures. Whatever the outcome, it should be communicated to the appropriate personnel to ensure proper implementation. Internal control procedures require evaluation and adjustment on a regular basis to ensure risks are being appropriately addressed. Control activities contain 3 principles. Number 10, management designs control activities to achieve objectives and respond to risks. Number 11, management designs the political subdivision's information system and related internal control activities to achieve objectives and respond to risks. Number 12, management implements control activities through policies. Control procedures should be designed to prevent, detect, or reduce the identified risks that interfere with achieving management's objectives. This internal control component typically contains your most important or key controls. An integral part of the control activity component is segregation of duties. Segregation of duties helps to eliminate or reduce the opportunity for a single individual to either intentionally or accidentally misstate financial information. As mentioned before, eliminating or reducing opportunity can reduce the risk of fraud and misappropriation of assets. It may be difficult for very small units to achieve proper segregation of duties. For these units, compensating activities should be implemented, which may include additional levels of review for key operational processes, random and/or periodic review of selected transactions. The reviews and testing may be performed by the governing boards or other elected officials. Some examples of control activities are reconciliations, authorizations, approval processes, performance reviews, and verification processes. More specific examples related to payroll, disbursements, receipts, and credit cards can be found in Part 2 on pages 7 through 14 of the Uniform Internal Control Standards for Indiana Political Subdivisions issued by the SBOA. Information and communication contain the next three principles. Number 13, management uses quality information to achieve the political subdivision's objectives. Management internally communicates the necessary quality information to achieve the political subdivision's objectives. Number 15, management externally communicates the necessary quality information to achieve the entity's objectives. An internal control structure must provide for the identification, capture, and exchange of information within the government and with external parties. Internal communication allows for management or supervisors and staff to communicate responsibilities, requirements, expectations, results, and potential problems. External communication is used to provide information to oversight agencies, legislature, and federal grantors. Information can be communicated in numerous ways, but evidence of the communication and information communicated should be maintained. This could mean saving emails, maintaining logs, retention of public records, retention of memos and reports, or by any other method that would provide sufficient evidence of the communication occurring and the information communicated. Monitoring activities is the last of our 5 internal control components and contains the last 2 of the 17 principles. Number 16, management establishes and operates monitoring activities to monitor the internal control system and evaluate the results. Number 17, management remediates identified internal control deficiencies on a timely basis. Monitoring activities allow management to assess the quality of internal controls over time and make adjustments as necessary. Proper monitoring ensures that controls function properly and continue to be relevant. This can be accomplished in various ways, such as reviewing control activities on a regular basis to ensure they comply with the unit's established policies and procedures, periodic testing of specific controls to determine if they are in place and working effectively, documenting control deficiencies, and developing and implementing a remediation plan. Take it step by step and see where it leads you. Make sure your control system includes activities for each of the 5 internal control components. Control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, monitoring. Once you have developed your control system, take a step back and review the system as an entire process. Do the procedures and policies that you have implemented in your internal control system work together to help you achieve your objectives? Are there procedures or activities that take up time but don't seem to accomplish any objectives? If so, those procedures should be reevaluated and either be modified to help you meet your objectives or eliminated if they are not needed. Also, you would need to determine that there are sufficient controls in place to meet your objectives. Does there appear to be any weaknesses in the system? If so, you will need to design and implement additional controls that would address those weaknesses. So ask yourself a few common sense questions. Are there adequate controls in place over the daily operations, such as processing and recording of receipts and disbursements? Will those controls prevent, detect, or reduce fraud or misstatements in our financial records and reports? Do we have controls in place to ensure that we are complying with our own policies and procedures, state laws and regulations, and federal grant requirements?
You just said that.
I hope she keeps going. Is that where it pauses, Jeremy? I can't remember.
It keeps going.
Once you are satisfied with the internal control system you have created, you'll need to make sure there is documentation for the controls that are supposed to be in place. Start with documenting the 5 components and significant areas first. For regulatory reporting, which is basically cash basis reporting, the significant areas are somewhat basic and include cash handling and management goals. Cash handling includes receiving, dispersing, and reconciling of cash balances, making sure to consider all 5 internal control component areas for each of the significant areas. Management's goals include customer service and compliance with laws and regulations. You want to make sure that you have documentation for the controls that are in place for meeting management's goals. Once you have developed and documented your internal control system, you will need to evaluate the system to make sure that the controls are addressing any identified risks. In evaluating, you will want to identify risk, perform your risk analysis, and respond to those risks by implementing controls, insurance, and acceptance of the risk. This is a continuous process, regularly testing the controls and analyzing them to determine if the control system is still being implemented and still effective. If weaknesses are identified, a response should be developed. The controls will change as the unit's environment changes. Unfortunately, this is not something that you do just one time and then you are done. So now that you have a better understanding about internal controls and their importance, are you going to trust or make sure things are done right in your office? Hopefully, make sure.
How'd you know that, Mike? You came in right at the end.
He's always watching.
You're good.
The guy who sits at the top.
Do we need to fill out this?
Yeah, wait, if you haven't yet, you need to sign one of those papers.
Certify that you have watched this because this is ongoing training.
Council members, are you
Every
done
year we'll be
signing?
doing some kind of training.
Jeremy? I got 3 things on here for you.
Just a reminder.
Go ahead, Phyllis.
We have a committee already established, which is Wiley and all the department heads,
Me.
and Ken and I. So we will need to develop a policy for our department.
I've been waiting for some sort of meeting or something.
We've been waiting on you to call the meeting.
Yeah. We'll put you in charge, Wiley.
Okay, we got 3 things for you, Jeremy. I guess the first one is to approve the nepotism flow chart for the Public Works Department. Is that what Debbie and you emailed me today?
That's what I sent him.
That's okay. From her email, well, I'm glad I didn't make a comment back to her. I was going to say something back to her about her husband and being ornery and
That's
stuff.
what you and I discussed,
Yeah.
other than we did not have the other box under
at that time, so.
Other,
I just basically just jotted that down quick this afternoon and sent that to you, so you had it for tonight.
and I tried to copy it best I could. Let me just share that.
Sorry, I was in a hurry this afternoon trying to get that done.
That's fine. This would be the flow chart for the newly organized department. And as you can see, I'm at the top, Jeremy's directly beneath that. The administrative assistant would report to Jeremy. And also, she would report to Matt Schultz in Jeremy's absence. Under Matt Schultz would come both of the crew leaders and the mechanic Jeremy Jones. Again, all this flows upward to Jeremy, okay? And then below the crew leaders would be all the street, public works people, sanitation people, water department employees, wastewater employees, in addition to Dwight Pierce from the Park and Rec Forestry Department. The only people not reporting to those, to Matt Schultz and or the crew leaders would be the Park and Rec personnel out to the right, which Sue and Chris would both report directly to Jeremy, and then all the part-time help and full-time help beneath them would report to them. So,
And that's due to the way the park hall is set up.
yeah. So I think it's kind of crystal clear. Are there any questions on this?
Looks good.
Are we calling this the Public Works Department?
Let's do.
Put public work on
Let's do. So if not, could I get an approval to go with this flow chart? Do I need an approval, Phyllis?
Tim recommended that.
Just a quick question.
Structured it.
Dwight Pierce,
Mm-hmm.
where's he paid out of? Parks and Rec, or is he?
Yeah.
paid out MVH.
Oh, is he?
About 3 years ago, there was some concern with Dwight working by himself. There was some safety concerns, and Larry Ish, myself, and Steve Kroll. Actually, it's been probably almost 5 years ago now. He was switched to MVH, which is Motor Vehicle Highway Fund, with street department, basically. Paid out of there. He's an employee out of there due to supervision, clear up some supervision challenges, I'll put it to you that way, and also be able to give him some help whenever he's out working.
So he's really not Parks and Rec anymore?
He's not a Park and Rec employee. His vehicle still says Park and Rec employee because that's how it was paid,
Yeah.
but his wages come out of the street department.
I'll make a motion to approve the flow chart.
Bill?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed, the same. Next is a request from Jeremy for a piece of equipment that he'd like to purchase.
In this year's budget, you guys have approved a new pickup truck, basically a replacement pickup truck. But looking at the numbers and with the recent reconstruction, what I'm going to suggest is you approve $25,000 for a truck. With this reconstruction, I actually purchased a new truck for myself last year. I've given that up to the crew leaders and took on a SUV that the police department had sitting out back. So in lieu of buying a new truck, I would like to buy basically a service body or a utility box to put on that last truck that I bought. And what this will do is it will give the guys some organizational tools, be able to get everything in out of the weather, have everything on the truck. For many years, the preparation for jobs where they would just throw the stuff in the back of the pickup truck and let's go to work. Well, this way they can have everything in the truck, it's secure, we can lock it up. That cost for that service body is $4,983. it would cost us $1,000 to have it painted, which we would have like Nathan Bowers or someone paint the body after we have purchased the body, done our own little lighting package and stuff on it. We'll actually mount the body ourselves. Then also, at the same time, I would like to request the purchase of a snowplow for that vehicle. That total comes to $12,065.40 versus spending the $25,000 that I had set aside for a new truck. I think this will get us by for several years. One of the crew leaders will obviously, whoever's around that weekend, will take the vehicle home, especially in the winter months, because we're going to be taking care of the street going back to the jail and some of those other little problematic areas that would need to be taken care of during the winter months. And we discussed this with the crew leaders, and they are 100% on board with doing this.
Is your old truck, or the truck that's going, is it four-wheel?
Yes, it is. Okay. Yes, it is. And that would leave us a balance in that, out of that $25,000, $12,934.60, which we may want to do some other things at the end of the year. I would just like to get this taken care
Jeremy
of
discussed this
before winter.
He discussed this with me, and not only do I think it's a good idea, I mean, I think he's being very smart and conservative with the city's money here, saving us money. He says we really don't need, we had it budgeted, but we don't really need the pickup truck, so why don't we do something with the truck? It's only a year old, and
if I would have stayed in the truck that I had, we would have needed it, but being that I stepped back and stepped into that SUV that Greg had left over, that SUV's got a lot of life in it, and I just can't see buying another brand new truck at this point.
I think it makes a lot of sense. And that having that extra blade on the vehicle's only going to be handy.
Correct.
So.
Correct. Well, and we're taking in some areas that are very problematic, and with the jail opening up this winter, that's going to take some time out there where, a crew leader can just run in from home and take care of that instead of going and getting a dump truck and so on and so forth. It's what we really need to do.
Would I have any discussion here? Or?
It's not new money, it's money that you've already approved.
I think it's fine. It's good. Good idea.
Yep.
Good spending of money.
Yep.
If you need a motion for this or not, but we'll make a motion to proceed with the purchases and upgrades like you have it here.
Second.
Motion and a second to okay Jeremy's request for the purchase of the service body, having it painted, and a plow for the front of it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you. And then Jeremy, I think you have one more request. That has to do with the roadway running next between the cemetery and St. Mark's.
Yes, I actually have another one after that. It'll be real quick.
Okay.
It kind of came in last. Several years ago, we had worked with former Highway Superintendent Mark Mitchell on cleaning up some roadway areas that we had shared with Adams County.
Yep.
And we had completed all but just a couple of those areas due to some challenges with some areas that John was looking at possible annexation with sewers and so on and so forth. But anyhow, to kind of skip to the point here, it's out at St. Mark's Church, what's known to some as County Road 50 West or Industrial Park Road that runs along the cemetery from Monroe Street to 224. That is actually St. Mark's property. That was found during some title searches through Bill Wimhoff from Wimhoff Lane Surveying. And how that came about was back in, I think they come up with 1964 or 1965 when they built the church. They had a hard time getting a road cut permit off the highway. The state denied it, so then they in turn just cut a driveway across. They had the property, so they just started cutting a driveway across to get into there. Construction took 2 years.
to complete on the church. At that point, there was some change in administration at the state level, and the church and the contractor went back and reapplied again for that road cut permit, and it was approved. So in the end, they ended up getting their entrance off the highway. Well, over time, with the road being there was some traffic through the industrial park, which is the industrial park now. The county went through and chip and sealed, and the city at some point made the other end nice, still having no ownership. I've had many discussions with Steve Hakes over the years about this property. Steve was very involved with St. Mark's Church, and explained it to them, and they never knew it either. They had no idea that they owned the property. So now it comes to the point is they really don't want the property. It makes sense for us to have it. What my request tonight is I've contacted Steve again recently. We've had a lot of good conversation about turning this over. They are to the point that they're going to take it back to their powers for further discussion, but they're all in agreement that this is what needs to be. So tonight, I guess I'm just asking when that time comes is to move forward with Bill Wimhoff, let him finish the work that he's already started on this, and eventually get that portion of that road dedicated to the city. They're not looking to sell it.
Does the road officially have a name?
Part of it's Industrial Park Road and part of it's County Road 50. It's just been, everyone assumed that they owned it. But if you go back through the deeds and you go back through the GIS.
I think if you're heading out on Monroe, I think on that sign it says 50 West.
On the highway side it says, yeah, I'm not sure what Monroe says. I know the highway says
Monroe
50.
to the left says Industrial Park, because I just used that last week.
Yeah.
Is that in the city limits?
Yes.
No.
No. The property is not.
The road?
The church is not, and the cemetery is not, but on the other side, the corner is, I believe. So.
What does that mean?
That's all the way through there where you're putting a sewer in, West Monroe Street sewer.
So does it have to be
The
annexed?
road is in the
Has
city,
to be annexed?
not the road right away. Well, I don't know now that you say that.
I have to look at that. I think it does, but
Being that it is undeeded.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that throws up a whole nother
I know.
flag I never thought of.
That's something I'll look at.
Okay, that's no problem.
Let's just look at that.
Hey, but we're table that one.
Your project for Tim.
They have expressed interest,
Growing.
but I told them they would have to discuss that with Tim.
Yep.
On the actual annexation.
And it may require some kind of a super voluntary annexation on their part or something.
Yeah.
Cemeteries in the county.
Well,
Cemeteries.
I'm not
Then who pays the cost of all that?
there's cemeteries in the county.
So when this is all done, should it
Actually,
be
across the
named
street
Gilbert Lane?
is all
No.
county.
No.
This reminds me of Everhart Drive. Schools owned
Oh, yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Same kind of scenario.
Same, almost exact same, correct. I thought that's why you were smiling.
Yeah.
What's the other thing you have, Jeremy?
Okay, I was contacted by a resident at 115 South 7th Street. They are somewhat handicapped with a request for a handicap parking spot in front of their home. Their first request was for two, or their thought was for two, and kind of convinced him that one would probably be sufficient.
You said 115 South 7th?
Correct.
So that would be down just
Across from the police
south
department.
Across from the police department,
Just
okay.
back to the south, just a little
Is
bit.
it you, Clyde?
No, I know who it is.
So, I explained...
Are they handicapped?
They don't get around like they used to.
Okay.
I explained the situation to him, what the process is. I told him I would bring it to this board, and you guys could decide.
What's fire say? Is it a problem?
No, there's parking on that side already.
Okay.
They're just looking for a designated space.
They're having, it's kind of a combination. I think they're having some neighbor trouble, and they don't get around rolling.
Not me, but I know who it is there too.
So,
Any other comments?
Right there.
that is up to this board to decide.
You did something similar on 7th by the west end.
We
Couple
have
years
done this
ago.
in places, and we review it periodically to make sure that the homeowners are still
We
living
just-
there. If they've moved on,
We just have to make sure that if we grant it, that we get it in our...
It has, you have to do it by an ordinance.
Exactly, because I noticed a lot of them that weren't when I first went through.
Right.
That just, they put them in.
Yeah, I know.
Who was your superintendent before that did closed alleys up?
Yeah,
Huh?
Joel and Bill.
Yeah. But they would just go ahead and create a handicap spot without making it in the ordinance, so.
You're gonna have to give me some information about the location.
How
Al, go ahead.
would that work then? Would you paint it up? Or?
You would have to paint the road, and you'd have to put a sign up.
Right. And then you have to remember that if things change,
And they move.
and they
That's why
move, that we
review
get
it
rid of them
periodically,
and
just
get
to
them
make
off,
sure.
out of our ordinance also.
I think
They have
we're
an
in
issue
favor
with-
of it, but we gotta do it by ordinance.
Okay. Hey, while you're here,
Yeah.
we still have like 3 or 4 things on the agenda, but could we briefly talk about the concern some of your park board members have with the depot rental agreement?
Last week, we had a park board meeting, the monthly meeting, discussed further the agreement. Cam's mom was in attendance to answer any questions, concerns that they had. Pretty well, they're just coming down to like 3 remaining concerns. One is the request that a person is at the site an hour before rental and an hour after the rental to unlock, so there's no keys passed out, and then someone is there at the end of the day after the event to lock everything back up. And
Now, that's a concern of who? The park board or?
Yeah, of the park board due to potential overtime and such.
Okay, now wait a minute. That wasn't part of the agreement though, was it? That we would have someone there an hour before?
Well, that was what was requested last Monday night by Cam's mom.
Okay.
Is it in the rules?
We
and
did
regs?
not put that, that's not part of the agreement.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so that would be something that I... And then also, the other concern was long-term cleaning. I know that there was some request that the Parks Department clean the building. General cleaning will not be a huge concern, but with all the wood and such inside, with making sure that everything's preserved properly and such, they didn't feel that we have the proper personnel to do that. And then they wanted to discuss the fees further, but that was, I think we pretty much took care of that conversation, so. They did request to have a meeting with
Right.
Ken and Tim at some point to discuss these little things a little bit further. It is under the understanding with Cam's mom, Sandy, that the women will continue to rent and handle all of the transactions until everyone comes to an agreement. These first couple times, because I believe that's rented this Thursday already, until we get everything worked out.
Well, just some quick thoughts here. The agreement that we had did not, I mean, we kind of said it's the city's responsibility to maintain it, so, I mean, it's up to us to figure out the cleaning of it.
Mhm.
It's up to us to figure out the opening and closing of it. So, I
All we
can-
want the parks to do is to book it.
I can understand that that request was made, but it wasn't made by us. So, I'd say that's our responsibility to figure out.
That's just a couple of things that, there's like 4 members that want to come in and discuss a few of these little things, just to make sure that what's expected of everyone, so we make sure that we've got everything
Just
covered.
brainstorming here, but I'm wondering if we can can we write this into our current custodial contract for the PD and here? I mean,
I'm sorry, say it again?
can we write this into our current custodial contract? Anytime there's an event, I don't know. Just brainstorming.
I think the general cleaning and stuff's not going to be a big issue, but periodically you're going to obviously want to go in and do some deep cleaning and such. That I would agree with him. I don't think we have the staff to do that. You know, the qualified staff.
Well, it was never the intention that the park board would be required to maintain it. So I don't think that's
City building.
I think we can clear that up with them real quickly. But back up.
Park board know that now? I mean, that's park board for the park.
Yes, correct.
So they need to announce that.
And I explained all that stuff to him. I still want to discuss it.
Okay.
So who would we have clean the building? On a I mean, yeah, after it's rented, people are going to clean it. But then before it's rented again, someone needs to go in and kind of go through the kitchen area and clean it up and just kind of spot check, clean it. If not the Park and Rec department, what department?
I think the only big concern was that they didn't want any keys passed out.
Yeah. I mean,
But if you're paying a deposit on the building, you just don't give them their deposit back till you get the keys back.
right.
And someone also watches or periodically checks in, you know, on the building. The only challenge you're going to have is if you have like a Saturday, Sunday rental.
Back to
you know,
back.
Back to back, obviously. Ryan watches that stuff very close when he rents park facilities in Riverside and so on and so forth. You know, that would be the only time that you'd really have a need for someone to come in just to kind of check in between, you know, Saturday night or by Sunday morning, just to make sure that, you know, the trash was taken out and everything's taken care of. I think we can work through all that little stuff. They just need...
Are the keys something that, are the keys
You
that we have
understand
now
where I'm going?
capable of being reproduced, or are they
I
the
don't
type
know.
that are not?
I don't know. I think if you pass keys out, you need to have it stamped where they're not to be duplicated.
Exactly.
You know, and I think that would take care of that concern.
Yeah. I think
Because
that's fine.
anyone that makes keys looks at the keys before they make them to see if they're to be duplicated.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it's reasonable to request anybody, let alone the park department, to be the ones to open and close after every event. Yeah. And on top of that, I guess, you know, I can understand who's truly monitoring how much time they're spending in there. There's got to be some good faith from entering into a contract that they're not going to be, because if it is the weekend, they're going to come in, is Ryan going to come in to give them the key an hour before?
Right. That's what they were proposing, is someone's there because they can be in there an hour before the rental and an hour after the rental. So what was being proposed, what was asked from us last Monday night was someone is there an hour before and they unlock. And then someone comes an hour after the event's over.
That means we're paying somebody.
And locks it back up. The way your policy manual reads, it's every time you're called in, it's minimum of 2 hours.
Yeah,
So you're technically racking up 4 hours every time that it's rented.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Flaw in our rental agreement.
So,
Okay, let us take that under advisement.
That was a concern. You know, we can discuss it at a later date.
Okay, we need to take that under advisement and come back to you. I'll talk with you more here this week.
But you're saying right now that the park board, they're not going to take on this responsibility of the rental thing right now?
I think they will. We just need to get a few of
Would
these
it be
little
better to
items
have it
looked at.
done right here at City Hall?
I don't think it's an issue for Ryan to take the money. It's just everything else that would potentially go along with that property.
I just don't think the volunteers should be taking the money. and running...
No. Ryan can do all that. He does deposits, he takes money every day anyhow.
I know, but I thought you said, but until that time that...
Well, that's what Sandy agreed to do was, and she was the one that suggested that they would handle it until that point, but, because I think your first rental is either tomorrow night or Thursday for a memorial.
Is she turning the money into Ryan?
I have no idea.
We just watched a video on internal
I
control.
know. That's why I'm bringing it up.
I mean, if they want to, be the ones to be there beforehand and open it up and close, okay, but I just don't think they should be receiving any type of rent.
I don't think they should be feel responsible. to do
Right.
that
No.
either.
Well, no, but if you recall, do you remember they all asked if they could maintain,
Kind of a,
they want to babysit it for a while. I think that will die after a while, but,
They put a lot of effort into it, and they want to keep it.
and so I understand that, but I don't think that it's appropriate that they would be
No.
collecting the rent.
No, if it's not going to be handled by the park department until this is all worked out, then it needs to come through us
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Which, like I said, I don't see any problem taking the money. It's just they had some concerns with unlock and lock and a lot of the cleaning and stuff like that, so. That's kind of where they're hung up.
yeah, that could be done right here at City Hall, without the park board. Phyllis's office can do it, girls up front can back them up.
That's whatever you guys decide on.
Let's talk about that again. We have things
Okay,
we have
that's
to
fine.
cover in a very short amount of time, and run, Ann.
Just a quick price quote for parts for our builder sledge press. It's nearing 20 years old.
One of those pieces of machinery
Yeah.
at a waste treatment plant that none of us understand.
It has lots of parts that need replaced. It's not operating right now.
There are a lot of parts listed
What
there.
is it? The sledge press.
And this quote is, when you and I talk, it's not like just anybody can come in and do this.
Right.
It's not like you can go out and
This is the
get,
manufacturer giving us prices for the quotes.
it's not like we can go get two quotes. This has to be who we have to do it.
Exactly, yeah. We're
It's a
gonna have
specialized.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we're gonna have a factory technician installing these parts too. So they're just, it's a repair part, or there's yeah, that's not part of this,
This is just for parts?
yeah.
This is not their labor?
Well, I have the labor quote, it's like $1,300 a day, that's below the purchasing
Okay.
agreement.
And
50 or something.
how, you say this is,
Don't quote me exactly there.
it's very old, you say, the
It's nearing 20 years old. They told us, you should look at a new one, but it's $280,000.
I like 27,000 a lot better.
Right now. Well, it'll probably be about 10,000 more
With labor.
for right now, but they said the new one.
27.
Do they guarantee another 20 years?
If you're a 20-year-old car and a
96.
car today, the technology is a lot better on new ones.
Did they guarantee 20 more years in that?
No, this is just, we've replaced other parts on the
I
queue.
understand.
Ann came and talked to Ken and I about the other day, and basically we wanted to show you guys what's going on. Berlin's thought was they put some money into some of the major parts of it already, so rather than spend the $280,000, I think we're going to get a lot of years out of what this is.
Exactly.
And that was Berlin's main concern, right? So there was one of the main parts you guys already put in
Yeah,
recently.
it was a drive or something.
Yeah, something.
This is another drive, I think, on there, but it's different. It's the tracking of the belt that's gone
Right.
completely.
And Vernon felt like by replacing all these parts, we're basically, almost everything is going to be new on the piece of equipment now.
thoughts or comments on doing this? If none,
Yep. Make a motion to accept.
Second.
We did talk about in the future getting a new one. Further in the future.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same, and you got your parts, go ahead.
20 years.
Um,
These parts run out.
Bill, did you want to talk about code enforcement this evening during the Board of Works meeting?
No, I'll just
Thank you.
comment later, yeah.
Okay, and then the only last thing I have at the Board of Works is the Taylor Gauge contract for employment. We need to make this a matter of record. This is a conditional employment contract with the fire department, and it's been signed.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Motion by Cam, second by Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? That's everything. I look for one last motion. Just a minute to go.
To adjourn, yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? We're good to go. Thank you all.